Hi guys, in this video we're going to be using some modelling paste and some little birdhouse cutters. I've also got some little impression mats. I've got a chocolate brown, so we're just going to dye some of our modelling paste with a chocolate colour brown. I'm just using my wood grain effect impression mat and we're pushing that into the modelling paste that we've rolled out. And then I'm going to take my little birdhouse cutter. I will put links in the description box below the video for where I've got all these different tools and equipment from that I use. So give it a good push down, and we want 2 of these. I'm going to use something with a straight edge, so I've just got a ruler to hand, and I'm going to push in my little lines, so I'm creating the little slats of wood now for the front of my little hen house. Just make sure that you haven't squashed the shape out, so I'm just checking it against the cutter to check, so there's just a little bit extra that I've pushed out. Of course, you can always just put the lines in before you cut out the house shape. So I've cut out another one of the pentagon shapes and 3 rectangles, so I've got 2 of the thinner rectangles and 1 of the thicker ones. Now I've got a small circle cutter that we're just going to push into our first little pentagon shape we've got. This is going to be our little doorway, and we're just going to cut down from either side of the circle. For the roof, I've used a deep red and a brown, and I've just got another impression mat, which is a bit of a brickwork style one that I'm using now. And of course you don't have to use impression mats, and you can draw the patterns in freehand. And I'm going to cut out 2 of my rectangles, and this was the larger of the 2 rectangles. So I've gone back to my brown, and all I'm going to do is cut a long rectangle, and this is going to be my little steps that come from my little hen house. Just measure it against the width of the door that you cut out of your first pentagon, so you can check size wise that it matches. I'll just give it a quick press with my wood grain effect, being careful not to squash it too much. And now we want lots of small, thin rectangles to put across the steps. Okay, so I only needed 3. Just stick them in place with a bit of water. Now I've got some brown dusts. These are just the rainbow dusts. And using a dry brush, try and go around the edges of each of your shapes just to give it a little bit of shading, and then sort of in between the wooden slats. And again, around the edges of all your other ones. You can spend a bit longer than I have done on mine. For my roof, I've actually used brown. I did get out a bit of red, but you couldn't really see it. My red wasn't deep enough, so I've decided to just add the brown around the edges of that as well. Once you've got those dusted up, they can be drying. While those are drying, we'll get on with making our base. So I've just got a 6-inch cake board, or cake drum. I've just used a little bit of water to stick my rolled out green fondant on. Just cut around the edge with a knife. And I do have another video on icing a cake board. If you want to see it, I'll put the link up on screen now. So I've got some of my green fondant left over. I've just got a little ball of it that I'm just going to push in place. It's just going to go underneath our hen house to support the hen house. I'm just using the wider rectangle cutter around that bit, and it should just give me a faint line so I know where my birdhouse is going to sit. I'm going to make some legs now. We're not rolling it out really thin, we're keeping it actually quite thick because it's got to be reasonably sturdy. Again, you can put some patterning in with the impression mat. I'm going to cut 4 little rectangle shaped legs, and I'm going to stick these in place with a bit of water, and I'm going to put 1 in each corner of that rectangle mark that we've made on our board. Just press it with something that's a flat surface, just so that you know all legs are the same height and even. And then I've got some little flower cutters that we're going to use, again, some more green rolled out fondant on. I've got them in a couple of sizes. We'll cut out a few of these, and what we'll do is we'll slice each of these in half, and these are going to look like little tufts of grass when we stick them on our board. Position these wherever you want them to go. I've just used a bit of water underneath mine to stick them in place. So I've kind of positioned them in a straight line so that from the front they look like grass. Now I've got a small little cake board. It's only a tiny one, and I'm just going to draw around the rectangle, the larger rectangle cutter. I'm going to put this under the base of our hen house. It just means if our actual hen house pieces haven't dried as firmly, they're still supported on this cake board. Just using a little bit of water on the tops of these bits, and we'll push that cake board on place on there. You can use royal icing if you prefer, if you're worried that you haven't got a very firm join. Now I've picked up my larger brown rectangle, and we've just stuck that onto the cake board like that. While we're giving the other pieces a bit longer to dry, we'll make a little hen. Now I've got some marzipan here. I've got some yellow And you can buy this marzipan ready coloured in a few different colours. I'm going to start with a ball, and we're just going to start pinching out a little tail. I'm not pinching out too much. For the wings, you want a little teardrop that we're just going to squash flat. I'm just using a modelling tool to just put a couple of little lines in so it looks like feathers. And then push that onto the side. Do the same on the other side. So I've got some more yellow. Start with a ball and then start shaping it with your finger. So it's got like a little dint going around the middle. And then what I'm going to do is where the neck bit is, I'm kind of pinching it to sort of hollow it out a little bit so that will sit onto my body. And I'm just going to use the modelling tool to just sort of push it up all the way around the edge so it looks like little feathers around the neckline. So push that onto the body, give it a good firm press down, and now I've got some orange. Just create a little triangle for the beak and push that in place on the face. And I'll just put a little line across the beak, so one each side with my modelling tool. I've got 2 round dots for the eyes, so I've just rolled 2 balls of white, squashed them down, and then play around with the shape a little bit so they're not perfectly round. Push those in place. And I've rolled a tiny round ball of yellow, and I'm going to cut that in half so you get 2 semicircles. And I'm just going to stick this at the top of each eye so it looks like little eyelids. For the tail, start with a teardrop, give it a bit of a squidge down so it's quite flat, and then we're going to divide it up into 3 pieces by putting 2 lines in with the modelling tool. Then that's just going to push onto the back of the bum. I've got a bit of black, just roll 2 tiny little dots, and we're going to place these in the whites of the eyes. She looks a bit angry looking at the moment. So back to our black, roll a really long thin piece, or a really thin piece, it doesn't have to be really long. And apologies because I've got this just off the camera, but I'm tucking it in to start from the centre of the eye, and it's going to follow the line along the eyelid, and then I'm going to trim that off at the far side of the eyelid, just leaving an extra little bit so it looks like an eyelash. Do the same with the other eye. I'm just rolling a tiny little bit to give her a second eyelash, like that. And then you might want to give her some little speckles or dots. Just used white to push on some little dots on her body. Or you can roll tiny little teardrops, sticking those on her feathers. Once your henhouse pieces have started to dry, just make sure they're firm enough that they don't bend when you pick them up, and we can start putting the henhouse together. Now I've got some leftover brown that I'm just kind of rolling and sticking onto my base. So I've rolled some long thin strips as well as these chunky bits. Now make sure they're quite wet because this is going to act as glue. So put the pieces together with your piece at the front that's got the hole in, and then the 2 thinner rectangles are going to become your side pieces. Give them a good squidge into those pieces that you've rolled and stuck down. Don't forget, this will be in the inside and you won't be able to see these pieces of brown that I've put in. Again, back piece, I've rolled some and put it around the edges at the back so that everywhere it comes into contact with the other piece, it will stick. Just give it a good push inside, making sure it's all stuck nice and tight in place. Do the same with the steps, so just a little piece on the back of the steps, and you're going to push that in front of the door. And apologies because I realise this angle is a bit difficult to see, but it should look a bit like that. So you're going to do the same principle for the roof, so I've just put a bit of water all on the back of the roof pieces, and then we'll roll some more of the modelling paste, stick it on those lines that we've painted on. And again, we're just going to push that in place on the top of our little hen house now. Take some of your leftover red from the roof and just roll a long thin piece, and just make sure it's the same length as the top of the roof. So I'll just cut that off there, and then we can stick that in place so it covers the join at the centre of the roof. And then using the leftover red from that, I'm going to stick some little teardrop shapes to the top of my hen, and the same little teardrop shapes but this time under her beak, like that. You can also do the same in yellow, so again if you want some little teardrops in yellow, then we're going to stick her to the board. And then I've just got a couple of little mini eggs that I'm going to stick in place, so just a tad of water, or you can use royal icing. Work out whereabouts you want them to sit. And you can completely fill the hen house if you want with the mini eggs, if I hadn't eaten most of them. So that's it finished. Thank you for watching. Happy Easter. If you liked this video and would like to see more, please click on the images of the other videos suggested. Also, please do subscribe to my channel using the button at the bottom right hand corner of the screen. You can also visit my cake website and my Facebook page to see more cakes and ideas.